The Georgia State House passed a bill Wednesday that would block cities and counties from defunding the police, after nationwide protests for racial justice led Atlanta and Athens to debate plans to redirect some police spending last year. House Bill 286 passed 101 to 69 in a largely party-line vote, with Republicans in support and Democrats opposed. It now goes to the state Senate for more debate. The proposal would ban cities and counties from cutting spending on police departments by more than 5% in a year, with some limited exceptions such as revenue loss. Republican Representative Houston Gaines of Athens, the bill's chief sponsor, said, "Defunding the police is a dangerous idea that would harm those that most need protection and put victims at risk." Democrats argued that the bill would block important conversations between local officials and their constituents about over-policing and the need for better investment in other areas. Representative B. Nguyen, a Democrat from Atlanta, said, "The efforts to transfer funding from police departments is about addressing the root causes that we so desperately need to address. It is mental health issues, homelessness, addiction, domestic violence, poverty and systemic racism." Similar bills have been debated in Arizona, Indiana, Iowa, North Carolina and Florida, among other states. Calls for defunding the police has been debated extensively around the country, but not much action has followed. An Associated Press review found that while some local governments trimmed police budgets, most cuts were modest and were driven as much by shrinking government revenue amid the coronavirus pandemic as by calls to rethink public safety. Under the bill, cities and counties could cut more than 5% if local revenues drop by more. Local governments with fewer than 10 officers are also exempt. Cities would be able to abolish their police forces and contract with counties for law enforcement if they guarantee equivalent levels of protection. Georgia cities and counties oppose the measure, arguing that state lawmakers shouldn't wade into local decisions about funding. Joe Biden on Wednesday revoked actions by President Donald Trump that were aimed at cutting off federal funding to anarchist cities, restricting legal immigration during the pandemic, requiring classical architecture for federal buildings, enforcing work requirements for welfare recipients and other moves. Biden also rescinded a Trump order allowing the Defense Department to exclude itself from collective bargaining requirements. And he revoked President Trump's order from 2017 establishing core principles for federal regulations, as well as a Trump action requiring federal agencies to waive any regulations that could hurt the economic recovery during the pandemic. Biden said the Trump order restricting certain forms of legal immigration during the pandemic does not advance the interests of the United States. Joe Biden said, "To the contrary, it harms the United States, including by preventing certain family members of United States citizens and lawful permanent residents from joining their families here." Business groups had urged the Trump administration to lift its suspensions on work visas, saying the action hurt efforts to recruit professional workers from other countries. Last September, after cities were roiled by riots and violent protests, President Trump issued a memo aimed at restricting federal funding to cities that defund their police departments. He singled out such movements particularly in New York City, Seattle and Portland, Oregon. Former President Trump said, "My administration will not allow federal tax dollars to fund cities that allow themselves to deteriorate into lawless zones." The directive had no practical impact, as President Trump lost the election 2 months later. President Trump's order in 2018 on welfare had sought to enforce work requirements, and to empower states to pursue policies that allowed private sector and faith-based groups to create solutions that alleviate the need for welfare assistance, promote personal responsibility, and reduce reliance on government intervention and resources.